I don't know what it's like to be like seven because seven's like a playoff of words. Like you got Tom Brady, he got 7 championships. You're 7-time Ninja Warrior. Maggie, what's going on? How are you?
Good. I am a fan of Tom Brady, and that was a great introduction. Thank you for that. Yeah, I've
Of
been a
course.
competitor on American Ninja Warrior for 7 seasons. Did a couple other shows for NBC as well. Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge, Ninja versus Ninja. So it's been very fun being a part of so many things with NBC. And then here and there, did a couple other things like World's Toughest Mudder, 24 hours running 75 miles, things like that. But my best, most grateful thing is I'm a mother of three.
I love that. You guys, there's so much here. There's so much to unpack, right?
Yeah, and I,
Let's
I
get
actually
it.
have a good throwing arm too, so just I'll put that out there for you.
Well, are we throwing baseballs or are we throwing footballs?
Either. I got it. I got you.
Either.
Either.
I'm gonna set up a challenge for you then.
Okay.
Football. You gotta throw it at least 60 yards down the field.
Oh, easy.
Easy.
Hmm.
All right. Make sure you tag me to the post when that happens.
Okay, you got
A
it. We
tight
heard it here.
spiral too, by the way, too, right?
Okay, I can't promise a tight spiral, but I'll get as close as I can.
All right. I
And I'll
love that.
record it and I'll tag you. It's here.
Okay. We're out
Challenge
here. Let's do it.
accepted.
The
Challenge
challenge is
accepted.
accepted. So let's get into some things here. I feel like I hear a lot about what you just said, your accomplishments and things like that. I think one of the biggest things I want to get onto is how can we learn to face our fears head on, direct for 2023?
It's been interesting. I've been doing a lot of talking for how do we launch into 2023? What does that look like? And the first thing I always tell everybody is number one, I'm not fearless. That's a common misconception. You hear the highlight reel and all those things, but if we had to leave room for my failure reel, we wouldn't have enough time for that. And so are we willing to be uncomfortable? And people think you need to be fearless. And again, you don't. Can you be uncertain in it? Can you step into something that you say, I have no idea? And there's a little bit of risk there. Some people can say, oh, well, we're risk takers. And I'm like, I think we're just people who want progress. And if we're encountering problems are progress. That's what it is. It means we're out there, we're doing it, we're getting in front of things. And so for 2023, is that what we're willing to step into? Is that where we're willing to go? And not always being 100% ready, because we all know this already. We'll never be 100% ready, but are we willing to go?
I love that. I love that. Well said. I feel like it comes into so many different things, being ready to go, like you mentioned, right? And it's like every day we wake up, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, we get outside. Some people are doing the gym thing. Some people are going straight to work and then they're doing the gym thing. And it's like the constant ebbs and flows of like what a busy life looks like, right? How do
Yeah.
you balance your busy life and things like that?
So balancing the busy life, it's equated to pennies. I mean, and I don't know, what is it in Canada? Are they pennies? I don't know
We
Canadian
don't have pennies no
currency.
more. They canceled that. Come on now.
Okay, so well, let's talk about that. People think that they don't have value. And we can look at our habits that way. We can look at the things. I love how you just started with brushing our teeth, washing our face, like the most basic things in the world. But some people don't consider starting their day until they get onto their laptop or they get onto a call. But I mean, we start the moment we wake up and every action we take after that. They're all little small habits that add up to big value and routine. And so for that, for me, I make sure, okay, am I doing the little things? The big things will come. And plus, a lot of times, if you're anybody who's ever lived, our day doesn't go as planned. That's just reality. We could have, this is my agenda for today. And how often is that not your agenda? Because you get a call and you have to solve a fire. I mean, whatever that looks like. So are you living within your baselines? And that's how I've actually been able to be. I mean, I'm 41 years old. I'm still an athlete. And I've been able to be an athlete since I was 14 years old. And it wasn't because of doing all these wild, crazy things. It's because I've had a lot of small habits that I've maintained over time and been consistent. And that's been able to translate across everything I've done.
I love that. And you know what? I'm gonna give you your flowers. I see you on that treadmill. Like you're giving it on that treadmill. I'm like, yo, she's like She's about this. You know what I mean? I think you could outrun me personally. 'Cause I'm not a big runner. You know what I mean? I traded all the athleticism. I'm still in the gym and stuff like that, but I traded all that for the mic now. So coming from the health and fitness background, I said, this is what we have to do: talk on the mic and collect these captivating stories, and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and this is your sport now. A lot of people say, well, we want to have athletes, they have translatable skills. And yeah, absolutely they do because you know structure and discipline and format. And when you invest in something and when you're investing into a person and you're trying to do a story, like all of that takes work. And it's not too different from anything else that we're doing. You've just
I
turned it
love that.
into a mic. So your
Oh, for
mic is
sure.
my treadmill.
Let's go. I love that. I love that play on words there.
Yeah.
So, for you, this journey that you traveled, how did it all start with the Ninja Warrior? Because Ninja Warrior to me, I've seen little bits, tidbits here and there. It reminds me a little bit of like a little bit of American Gladiators because we were on the same age. It's
Yeah.
got a little American Gladiator feel to it and whatnot. So, speak about that journey and how that started for you.
First of all, since you said American Gladiators, and I don't usually tell a lot of people this, I tried out for it and I made it to the final round until they cast the people who make it on American Gladiators. And I didn't make it. And I'm actually so glad I didn't. It's one of those things where can you be grateful for rejection and can opposition become opportunity? So I'll just give that little plug there. Well, American Ninja Warrior, I had spent 10 years managing multi-million dollar construction projects. I used to build stadiums and arenas and work with nearly every sport known to man. My best friend passed away. And the day of her funeral, I felt I was called to build people and not buildings. And so I quit my job. Everybody thought I was bananas and ruining my life and I'd never be successful again. And I wanted to take the skills that I knew I had and I got to give me, okay, how am I going to use these? And so American Ninja Warrior was kind of on the scope for that. I did Mrs. International, World's Toughest Mudder. This is when I'm doing all these things. And I've had success at that. And I'm very thankful. I'd won Mrs. International. I had got second at World's Toughest Mudder. So going into Ninja Warrior, I was like, I got this. And then I fell on the first obstacle. And, they aired it. They have a camera in your face, Maggie Thorne, you fell. How does it feel? Amazing. What else are you going to say to the camera? You want to be positive. I'm sure they may be looking for tears. Not my own. So they aired that. And then I actually applied for a second year and I was rejected. I applied for a third year and I was rejected. So I'm 4 years into Ninja Warrior. And at this point, people were telling me you should quit. They don't want you. Why are you working so hard? And that wasn't the first time I had heard that. I had heard people over the years, why do you work so hard? It doesn't matter. It's always mattered to me. And so year 4 is when I came back as the top female in my region on American Ninja Warrior, and then just continued to have a lot of success on the show. Very grateful. A lot of opportunity and a platform to also share that message to people back is never give up. If you know you're meant for something, if you know what your why, if you know what you're supposed to do, never give up. But more recently, it's not just about saying never give up. How do you become never give up? How do we become something? How do you become the connector of people through a mic? How do you become the person who loves ketchup chips? That's for another story. All these things in our life. How do you become what we say? And that's what this journey's been recently.
I love that. Jeez. It always goes to, they say delayed doesn't mean denial, right?
Mm.
And no matter what happens, like, I remember going to school when I did computer programming and I'd always fail the first, I always used to fail the first test, but then the second test, because you had a chance to retake it. So I used that as an opportunity to build. And some people say, well, couldn't you just not ace it the first time? Sometimes it's not like that, especially when you're condensing a program down in 8 months that was supposed to be done in 2 years. All right.
Yeah.
That's a story I don't really talk about with a lot of people, but I'll start sharing it here and there, and stuff like that. So sometimes when we're delayed, doesn't mean we're denied,
Yeah.
access. You know what I mean? It's like Mission
Yep.
Impossible when Tom Cruise is coming down, with the lasers and stuff like that. I was sweating watching that whole scene. Knowing this man was only like 2 feet off the ground and he was still sweating. You know what I
Oh my
mean?
gosh. Yeah, I've just started, admittingly, I'm late to the train on Mission Impossible But I am also that person. I will say my mindset when I drive next to a vehicle, I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I tried to jump onto the ladder or the back of that truck. So I also think that way. I'm surprised I didn't watch it sooner.
You gotta get on what? It's like that
I
James
know.
Bond. I feel like it's a ritual now.
I just watched all of James Bond over Christmas,
Okay.
and I some things right delayed. It was its timing. I needed to wait to watch all the James Bond movies. Now I've watched them. I'm in. I'm in.
I
But
hear
you're
you.
right. I mean, just in what you said, and that's all about perspective, right? We have this word purity, and it's used in a number of ways. The way I use it is it means unfiltered, and you have to go through this extreme process to have a level of clarity, and that's what vision can look like for us. And the vision for is whether it's Ninja Warrior, whether it's computer programming, whether it's to do what you're doing now and on a mic, but you can't do it if you can't see. And so if you are delayed and it clouds your vision instead of it clearing it, well, then that's a process in here. That's something here. I mean, I would almost suggest people to start in their heart space necessarily than their head space, because this can be more powerful than this and vice versa. But it gives us direction and tells us where we want to go. But can you see it? And I'm using this because usually I hold up a glass of water when I talk to people about this, but that's what it represents. And if you don't have that in front of you, of course, you're going to fumble and fall and have no idea where to go. And the journey's quite strenuous. But if you can see it and maybe you know those obstacles are coming when you encounter them, they don't become quite the obstacle, and it really starts to change us.
I love that. And it also plays off of, I remember, it was a black and white video. I came from the school of doing martial arts, being two-way, playing soccer and stuff like that too. And Bruce Lee talked about be like water. So it's interesting that you made the reference to the cup, because cup, liquid has to go in the cup. The cup could be, attached to water, could be coffee, could be whatever you want to drink, right? So one of the biggest things I learned is when he said water can flow or water can crash. And
Mm,
it kind of goes into life, right? We can
yeah,
flow or we crash, right? Which plays
yeah.
off of fearless and reckless. How would you elaborate between those two?
I think people confuse the two. And there are people who, I mean, there's people who captain a ship that is in the middle of a storm that most of us aren't even equipped, to handle. Now, it doesn't mean we couldn't get there, but there are those people who are out in the storms and they are just the front line, like knowing your role, knowing where you're at. And that goes back to, for me, knowing your why. So someone else's reckless might be the different than mine. I don't think there's one. And that can change. It depends on where we're at in someone's comfort level. Everyone isn't meant to push their comfort zone, but I would encourage people to at least try and figure it out, and they might surprise themselves. I mean, World's Toughest Mudder was one of those things for me. I mean, I was a sprinter. I did hurdles. I spent 10 years turning left and jumping things. I mean, it wasn't very complicated. And when I got back into the world of athletics in my mid 30s, when I'm like, oh, I've had 3 kids, maybe I should become a professional athlete in my mid 30s. That's what everybody does. And so World's Toughest Mudder was something where I was just curious. I wonder if I could do this. My goal, I would have been happy with 25 miles. I said, my number one goal is to put one foot in front of the other for 24 hours and see where that takes me. Now that's something pretty small. That's not 75 miles. That's not 80, whatever that looks like. My goal is one foot in front of the other. And that turned into 75 miles because I just didn't want to stop. What if I could just keep going? What if I could this? I had only run 8 miles before that, but I was willing to be uncomfortable. But then even at the end of it, if you came in the finish line before 10 o'clock, you were able to do more miles if you wanted, and they legally counted. So first place is already in. I've secured second place. Nothing will change that. The camera crews are around me. Maggi Thorne, how do you feel? And I was like, I'm not done. And everybody was very confused. And I still had time left. Why would I stop? If we have time left in our life, if we have time left in opportunity, why would I just stop? What if I figured out every last ounce of me that's possible? And that's what came out of that day. And then about an hour later, I took the biggest power nap of my life, where people were like, walked up to me and were like checking my neck. And I'm like, I'm alive. Just leave me be.
No, I love that. It speaks to the power and the art of resilience, right? And I think that not only a lot of women, but I believe a lot of men can learn that also too, right? How do we be resilient? Resilient in relationships, resilient in life, health, right? How do you impact, because you do a lot of, you say, speaking now. How
Mhm.
would you speak to women first about how they can become more resilient in their life through anything they're going through, to the following of what I just mentioned?
I love that question. I love that you asked that about women. What I specifically say to young girls getting this in their head early is that there's no glass ceilings anymore. Forget it. Build your own building. And if you don't like it, lead it. And that's for the older woman. And I mean, even any age, I have this hot pink bow that I normally wear when I compete. And I wasn't a cheerleader. It represents when you're younger, people tell you anything is possible. You hear it in school, any programs you're in. They try to encourage you to dream. And then as you get older, people try to limit you and narrow you. And that's really about their own insecurities, right? They're speaking to the younger you at some point and saying, hoping for them, please make anything possible for your life. And then once they become peers, there's less inspiration there. Go for it. Go for anything at any age, at any time. I believe it. I will always live that way. I do live that way. And that is for those women is build your own building. And then the second piece of it is, I mean, sometimes we really have to put our ego aside, our emotions aside. And if I'm over here living in that, I can't have progress. And that's vision and that's focus and that's the clarity piece we just talk about. They all go hand in hand together.
Well said. How do you spin it now to men? Because men can be more, they say men, we're more logical, right? Things like that. But I want to get it from a female perspective.
Yeah, what would I say to men? I mean, a majority of my work has been around men. I've been the only female in the room about 99% of the time. As a female who trained with men, I worked in construction projects. And so within that world, it would be similar. I mean, yes, men and women are different, but not as far as we think, having been immersed in both worlds. I think for men is being able to set that ego aside, being able to speak directly. I value that in men that are teammates, and if we're able to have open communication, um, and also just being able to respect each other. Like when two people can respect each other, so much progress can happen. But that means we both have to be open to hear each other, to wade through things that can carry too much weight, where I mean, you can only hold on to something for so long, obstacle, no matter what it is, and you get worn out. But when we can live here, I mean, even here, high five, teamwork. I'm a high fiver. This leaves us open handed and it leaves our arms ready to receive. And so, man, woman, whatever that looks like, that's there for both of us. I've been very fortunate, I'll say. Most of the men who were my bosses always champions me. I got moved into leadership over the years, and they saw someone who was driven, would go above and beyond. And I think also I've never had the perspective, well, I'm a female, so everyone's going to look at me this way. I don't have room for that. And so I've accelerated in those areas and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for having people who have championed that. The last piece I would give, if there's a man in leadership, is I've been trying to encourage men in that position to give single moms a chance.
I love that.
Sometimes single moms just need opportunity. You will probably have the most hardworking, loyal multitasker you would ever have an employee. But what does she need in return? Flexibility. But what do you give? You not only give her opportunity, but her kids opportunity. And you give them a chance to thrive. And this is where we're really going to change things.
Damn. The buttons are right there for the soundboard. Wow. I like that. So, because you said a lot there, why would you say more single mothers getting those equal opportunities and chances? Is it because is it
I
because
should say single parents. Let
single
me,
parents? Yeah. Why
yeah.
would you say that?
I think traditionally what I've seen in work culture is people have stayed very much to the 8 to 5. The 8 to 5 work schedule was created in a day and age when houses had one car garage and they had one vehicle. And I mean, that's just not 2023. We haven't adapted work culture to our culture. And people wonder why they can't retain people, why we can't have talent, why we lack a workforce. And like, there is an incredible workforce right at your hands. And when you give them flexibility, I mean, people that are single parents want stability. They want to work hard and they want to provide, but they have really limited opportunities because people cannot get out of an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday mindset. If you can have a baseline of objectives and say, these are your goals to meet, however you get there, I trust you, that's powerful. So right now I'm in a position, I'm in the tech world. I've merged into the tech world and helping people break down those obstacles with something called AIM Institute and we for education, all those things. Well, I had a chance to build a team and I wanted to hire two versions of myself. I wanted to hire the younger me because when I was 24 years old, I was a pregnant intern. My degree wasn't in construction management, wasn't in engineering, but there was someone who saw drive, discipline, and passion in me. And those are things that can be very difficult to train in people. You can teach them everything else. So I've hired this version of me, someone that's very young and has things that I cannot teach, but I can teach the rest. And then I've hired a single mom, someone who, as I've gotten to know her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she is insanely talented and she just needs opportunity. And I was very grateful when I had the chance to offer her that. And then just being able to see the relief in her life as she has struggles as a single parent, but I can still see her thrive as a working mom. And I can see her son start to thrive and her start to solve things. What if we all just did that more at a baseline? We would change things and cultures would grow and they bring new ideas and she is just bursting with ideas that I can only imagine have been held in for years because she's been stuck. I mean, so I'm becoming a very strong advocate for that in the workforce because we have a workforce deficit, but yet people aren't willing to change how we look at things.
It's tough because I think it's again. I said this to a team lead one time. I said that we have a thing called growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, right? And it's crazy because when you're in these corporations, and I still am in corporate, and you mention this to them, they kind of pull back a little bit, and they get with they're on their back foot half the time. And I'm like, you don't need to be. It's because I don't operate at your lens and your viewpoint, right? Which can come
Yeah.
across to be a puppet to some sort. You're paid. You're paid to say what it is you want to say. You don't ever
Mhm.
want to shake the globe sometimes, and you got to. I think in any line of work, you got to shake the globe, right? But I think more people have to have a growth mindset. But then you think of the universe and the world, not everybody's built for that growth mindset, right? It takes a
Yeah.
growth mindset to go on Ninja Warrior and be, 7 times. You know what I mean? It takes a growth mindset to win 7 Super Bowls. Shout outs Patrick Mahomes won 2 Super Bowls. You have to have a growth mindset. It
Yep.
can't be fixed. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I think going into Ninja Warrior, I already know at some point I'm going to fall. So acceptance. I mean, if we're not willing to accept some of those obstacles, then we can't have that mindset. I've seen people who I am a pretty vocal person. I would
I
imagine
couldn't
you
tell. I
sound like
couldn't
you are
tell.
too. And I speak up. I mean, it's me speaking up has shaped my life of being just willing to say things, but also I'm willing to be rejected and not offended by it. So it keeps me going because it's going to happen. I'm not going to live in a world where everyone agrees. And that's okay. I hope not. I hope not because that's where collaboration happens. So they were like, gosh, you just need to actually not speak up, put your head down, and just grind. And I'm like, no, like if we want progress, if we want collaboration, if we want to lead, if anybody wants to lead, you've got to have those difficult conversations. And as you said, I've never heard that, but I like it. Shake the globe. I wish I had a globe. I want to go shake it.
We're in the back end of, well, I feel like you're in Canada. Mother Nature's playing tricks on us. So it's like cold outside, but it's like now spring. It feels like spring. But I'm telling
Yep.
everybody, the pump fake is happening at the free throw line. The free
Oh
throw
my
line.
gosh.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
I live in Nebraska. It's very much the same where you're in shorts on Tuesday and on Wednesday you're in a snow jacket.
No, I hear you. You
Yeah.
say a lot about, you say you're in the tech space. I feel this could go interesting. How do you feel about tech right now with all these AI automated services? You got GPT
hmm
basically running what's happening now. So how do you feel about all that? I know it's a little sidebar conversation, but it's a hot topic
No,
right now.
I love it. I've been following it very closely. And before it became popular, just kind of knew about it, not by my own self, that someone said, "Hey, have you heard about this?" and shared it with me. And I really love learning about new things. So we really have to look at tech in general. We're in its infancy. So I'm not surprised by it. It's growing at a fast rate. I mean, realistically, our cell phones are teenagers. Like if you have to think about technology in terms of that. So what happens with teenagers? They're very difficult, you know? And so of course we're in this phase with tech in general that there's challenges. We're still learning. We're still growing. We're still trying to parent it, so to speak, and figure that out. And so I don't want to not embrace the chat GBT. It will probably shape everything forever. And then how are we going to respond to it? And I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to respond with fear. It's not helpful. So, so what does that look like? I don't know if I know yet, but I continue to be curious. I did see a new AI that answers your emails for you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, sign me up for that one.
Hmm?
Um, but I think it's people continue throughout history. People have been worried about being placed by machines through the Industrial Revolution. I mean, I'm a bit of a history person. I really enjoy it. And so, if we live with fear, that's where we'll stay. If we live with progress, that's also where we'll go. I would have to imagine where we're at in the world is a place that some point, somewhere, someone's like, please make this better. Well, we're here, and then they're scared about it. So, if we're asking for it and then we get it, well, let's embrace it and let's figure out what this looks like. So, I think if it helps us get better, that's great. And then let's continue to challenge ourselves. I mean, for you as a coding person and in tech, I've heard the AI can only replace basic coding. You know, you still need people who are and more advanced. Um, so what does that look like? Well, let's all get better and adapt and figure out new things and be curious. I mean, it's not like we haven't been here before.
Hmm.
So
In my defense, like I should have went through computer science. I did the programming. I was going to go to computer science and then do all that, and I would have been like some tech whiz. So I keep up to date with tech, and it does come across in our everyday, solutions, influencer, podcasting. This chat GBT thing is, I don't want to give out too much spoilers. Podcasters got to pay attention. It changes the game. Like, especially if you're building a platform such as like YouTube, finding
yeah.
those key search words, finding a description, finding things like go deeper beyond the surface and stuff like that, right? So it's got a lot of room, and I feel like we are living in this area in this age. Like a friend told me, he's like, he thinks people are going to be obsolete from jobs very soon once this thing actually gets pushed the right way.
Uh, I think that might be giving it too much credit. I mean, we were made for human connection at a baseline. I just don't believe anything will ever replace that. Maybe it feels like that for an amount of time, but eventually we would all feel the pain of that. Like we are made for interaction. So that's just where I'm at on that side of the thing. It doesn't mean we might not go through the pains of figuring that out. And again, it's just like anything else. And then how do we see the opportunities in that? I mean, I am the person where I do not like calling into automated. I'm like, oh my gosh, give me a real person.
Trust me.
um, yeah. So
Trust me. I think like even businesses, like I get it, have somebody on the other end and you're on a live chat. I think it's one of the most, I think it's disrespectful, honestly. Cause like I had to call my internet provider because I'm getting slow speeds and it's like, oh, you can chat with Anna and she can answer your, no, Anna, not, we're not doing that today, Anna. No, I need real person because I need tech to come out here and change up all the wires, change up what they need to change up. And that's good.
yeah,
Not Anna telling me, oh, well, you can book an appointment. And I'm like, do I really trust this is going to happen? It's kind of crazy.
yeah. It's interesting though, because if you look at it in terms of, we just talked Super Bowl, right? Um, the Super Bowl numbers compared to streaming numbers when there's a live event like on Twitch or anything, they are blown out of the water by gamers. I don't know if you know that about
Oh, I
ads
do.
and revenue and streamers. And I mean, I'm not even a gamer. My son is. I try to play. He gets super frustrated with me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm doing my best. And he's like, Mom, he just takes the remote back. I'm not building the right map in Fortnite. But that's, there's something to be said to that. And instead of being frustrated at it, I hope we continue to lean into it in a lot of ways. I took my son to a gaming invention called DreamHack, and it was actually one of the best experiences I've ever had because you saw everybody he would never imagine they'd all be in the same room. In the same room, it was beautiful to me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I mean, every label you could imagine. I don't want to say them, but whatever it is, every high school movie you've ever seen where there's like the so and so's and the so and so's, and it's the incredible amount of diversity. And I'm like, why are parents so scared? Like, this is phenomenal. And I mean, everything has its downside. Like, that's just life. So I hope we can lean into it, lean into
No,
all
no,
of it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's the coming of age. Like, I feel like Gary Vee predicted it in such a way when he's talking about like 2016, 2017, people be watching gamers. And I game a little bit off and on. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll flick on Twitch and I'm like, well, what's this person doing? What's this person doing? It's pretty interesting. You know?
It is. And my son, even though as a gamer, all the people he games with, they're all really close in real life too. It's just making sure, okay, are we building that in? That's just effort.
Building
So
relationships.
yeah, I'm for it. I'm for gaming. I'm excited about the AI. Tech is an exciting space. I'm not discouraged by anything that's been happening in the tech world in terms of layoffs. Some of that was just poor leadership, in my opinion. Like Apple hasn't been necessarily facing that, and I think it's because they didn't overestimate the pandemic, and so they've really been honoring to their workforce, and that's just kind of what's happening now. There's other companies that are still growing and still going, and it's all perspective, right? That's what we're not seeing. We can be over here in fear for some few who are unfortunately tech giants, but we can all still focus on all this other growth happening here.
No, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like before we get out of here though, there's a lot we covered. Like this, I love this conversation. I feel like if we were in person, we go at least 2 hours, maybe three,
Yeah, it's fun.
but we'll see. We'll see. We'll let the audience determine that one. With everything that's going on, right? We're what, 3 months into the new year. And, for you, what's your ultimate plan? Are you looking to consistently bring, the ninja warrior, the badass mom, all this stuff into full force?
I think for me for 2023, not just I think I know, is that it's really a breakthrough year. I have every year I've competed on Ninja Warrior. I've had a Bible verse, and then I've also had, this is breakthrough or rise up, whatever that looks like. And last year was just never give up because it was really about becoming that. And so seeing all those things and how they've come into play, and really that even though I was an American Ninja Warrior, is I'm made to be a warrior for people. I'm not afraid to be out there. I'm not afraid to take some hits and also just keep getting up, keep going and stronger than ever. And so really keying in on there's this platform I've been fortunate with. How will I champion others? And so like I feel the weight of that every day and really putting my energy there. I've had a lot of my own success and I really just want to see it in others. I want to see other people rise up. I want to see other people break through. I want to see single parents. I want to see kids, youth, whatever that looks like, because I want to champion them and then get creative with resources. I'm not afraid to ask people for things. Again, it goes back to being uncomfortable, but it also knows I also know I don't have to have all the answers. And most people are, I think, actually waiting for someone to ask them. They just need someone to come with them with a plan too. And so working on those plans, writing a book, being just kind of more fierce than ever and getting that message out there. And then like at my baseline is champion my kids and their gift. My kids are all kind of athletic. My middle daughter's wants it. She's a national champion in hurdles. She's phenomenal. Her goal is the Olympics. And I'm just at a place where I'm like, yeah, if I'm not an athlete anymore, I'm okay with that. I know that will come into champion others. But until then, I kind of work out so I can keep up with her. So she has a
What do you
training.
mean? You see now, see, this is where we come. I don't have no kids, but it's so funny because it's like, when does it get to you're the teacher, they're the student, and the student conquers the teacher?
We're close. She did ask me, she goes, Mom, am I faster than you yet? And I was like, not yet. Even the deep down inside, I'm like, she might be, um, when I was training growing up, once I did sports, so I grew up in a low income home. Both my brothers were in and out of jail. They were high school dropouts. I didn't play sports. We didn't have resources for that. It wasn't until high school teacher thought I looked fast in PE. So once I did start sports, turned out I had a gift for it. And it was very difficult to train with women. And this all sounds weird, but I had to train with the guys. My daughter's the same way. She doesn't really have anyone to train with. But for now, except on days where she's very moody, I'm her training partner. There's days where I'll be beating her and I think it's probably not the day for her. And she goes, Mom, stop. And I'm like, somebody has to push you. Um, and so for that, like I want to stay in shape for her to push her to have that opportunity. And I know what that's like when you do have a training partner as well. I'm very grateful for my college roommates who, even when I advanced to the national championships and they didn't, and they were on our team together, is they actually kept practicing. So I had a running mate. And that gets me right here. They could have been done with their season, on with their life, and yet every single day they were still at practice to make sure I had someone pushing me. So
I love
shaped
that.
me forever.
I love that. Jesus, I love that. Good story. And it reminds me a little bit of one of my, it's in my top 10. He got game. So I hear what you're speaking to about going out with your daughter and stuff like that. Is when you think of Denzel and Ray Allen, right? And I think any kid that's growing up, I think that's a good staple of a movie to really anchor in. The context is a lot. There's a lot that's there. But when
Yep.
Denzel was even playing with Ray Allen, he's giving him that tough love. A lot of people are like, yo, that's like abuse to the kid. No, that's what gets that kid better. Believe it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I know it's subjective. Some people are like, well, you can't push them too much. You can't, force them to do something they don't want to do. But if it's the sport that they want to maximize their full opportunity in,
Yeah.
heck, I say this to all my guys that have kids. I'm like, listen, if and when I have a child, just know my kid is gonna LeBron all your kids. So you better start now, because listen, when it's gonna be, we're gonna be at these games. You're gonna see my kid. You're gonna try to guard him. One crossover, he's at that lane, and he's dunking on the whole team. Sorry. And I'm just gonna be over there sick. Remember when I told you? Remember that?
Remember when? Remember when? Kids need people to champion for them. They're kids. They need that advocate They need someone who can also balance it. I mean, they have to have ownership of it too. I've seen parents take it too far. That's been a challenge for me to try. How do I navigate being mom and coach for her, for any of my kids? And what does that look like? And it also is different for each one. I'm not a soccer coach, but I coached my son's soccer team for 4 years. And it's because all those, I mean, I tried to quit several times and all the parents were like, no, we love you. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm actually teaching them soccer. They're like, no, you're teaching them things that this is what we want for them to learn at this time in life. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want, I got that. My son was happy with that. My daughter, on the other hand, she's like, I want to be an Olympian. I want to be this. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I want to know, do you want this? And if you do you understand what the journey looks like? Because if it doesn't, let's get on the same page with that and what it requires. And then this would be my role. This is yours. Is this a yes? And we still have to balance that. But I know that she has to be all in. It cannot be my journey. I've seen many athletes that are national champions, world, show up at university, and the minute they don't have their parents at their side pushing them, they quit. I've seen it more times than I can count. And so how do we foster where it's in them? It's or just that encouragement or standing back for them to own that and want that and just being in it. We'll all always be figuring that, especially for you when your child LeBron's it.
He's gonna LeBron, and it's gonna be a mix between LeBron and Jordan. I'm not saying he's gonna get to the NBA. I know people are gonna listen, but oh, you think your kid's gonna get it? I didn't say that. So you're gonna LeBron. He's gonna be like the LeBron, the Jordan, and the Kobe out there.
Yeah.
But before I always say this, before I end the show, I always have this thing where it says 1% better. All right? How do we become 1% better? I feel like we covered it a little bit, but from your point of view, Miss Ninja Warrior herself, how to become 1% better?
How I become 1% better is just the work I'm doing in here. I mean, even though I've faced a lot of obstacles on Ninja Warrior or the courses I've competed on, I've equally had life obstacles and not necessarily done all the work in here. And I think actually to become my best, strongest self, working on this is where that will happen. And that's my 1%.
I love that. Short and sweet. Well, where can everybody check you out? What you got coming up? Yeah, I heard something about a book somewhere coming.
I just started a book this weekend. I've had people ask me about it a number of times, and this weekend is when I had the yes. I was like, yeah, it's time. So I'm going to start working on that. I will be out and about at events all across the U.S. throughout the year. Usually I'll post about them. People can connect, check it out. Probably the biggest one I'll go to is in Colorado, Warriors on a Mission. We're doing a huge event, a couple thousand people in it's around Denver, Colorado. So that'll be June 9th and 10th, and people can check that out.
For sure. And no Canada love yet, eh? Because you
I
got
still
some
have my
Canada time. We
passport.
spoke before we hit the record button. You know, I'm not gonna say the area, but it is what it is. No Canada show? Like, come on.
I'll take a trip with my friend Priscilla. No, and I also love connecting with people on social media. Follow me on Instagram. I try to respond the best that I can, and I value interaction and people's stories and their story, and am usually pretty treasured that someone would be willing to share that.
I love it. I love it. And honestly, such an amazing time, just having this conversation with you and all that good stuff. So I do appreciate you too.
Appreciate you as well. Thank you very much.